Hello, and welcome to Teaching Your Classroom More Effectively Using Differences and Similarities in Students. The first lesson describes and goes in depth on differences and similarities themselves. To start with student differences, I like this quote here. Diversity plays a role in how students and teachers view the importance of the classroom and what should happen there. Yale Center for Teaching and Learning. Student differences are very important because no individual is the same, and because of this, no one learning for individuals should be the exact same. Here are some types of differences and the effects that they may have on a classroom. Race. Now, race and ethnicity go together along with culture because they determine how a student was raised, the things that they have learned through their family and home life, their practices, and also how other students view them. Because of race and ethnicity, along with culture, students will be different from other students, and they may feel as though their culture is or race or ethnicity is not being well represented in school, especially if they're a minority. Because of this, students will behave differently and have different expectations for themselves. For instance, a lot of the times in other countries other than the US, education is not the most important thing. Family is. So you may have a student in your classroom who struggles with doing homework because they are helping out with the family at home. It's not because they are not a hard worker. It's just because they have different priorities that their parents and family has taught them. Next is socioeconomic status. This is another important one because, as we all know in today's world, money is very important. Students may not have materials they need to do their homework. They may, as mentioned before, they may struggle doing homework because they have to go home and work to help support their families. They may also have a parent who is addicted to drugs or unable to help out because they are working with socioeconomic statuses that are low. And as a result, they may also be hungry a lot because they are not getting the food they need. If a student is from a high socioeconomic status, odds are that the parent will be highly invested in their student's education, and therefore there is another difference along with that. We already discussed culture a little bit, and family and home life is another difference. As mentioned before, the stress and values that the family puts on education and other things determines how well, for the most part, is a big determining factor on how well a child would do in school. If a child, for instance, is being abused at home, then their mind is not going to be on schoolwork. They will have bigger things that they need to focus on outside of school. If a child also has lots of siblings, that may affect learning as well. Gender is another difference. Boys and girls are different, and scientists have known this. It's no secret. Boys are more active generally, and girls are easier to be in are easier to manage in a classroom. Keep this in mind and do not hold boys and girls to the same standards. Well, achievement-wise, yes, but do not expect girls to be able to do things that certain boys can and boys to be able to do things that certain girls can. While they can accomplish the same things, it just is that they may go about it differently. With language, this is an obvious difference in classrooms. If a student does not speak the same language as everyone else or is an English language learner, an ELL, then they are going to need additional help in the classroom. This either must come from the teacher or from a professional who is with them in the classroom helping them translate things. This means that as a teacher, you will need to be aware of the student's situation, be able to find the necessary help, and if not available, then you will need to tailor lessons and make sure that that student gets the same education as everyone else. Prior learning is another difference. This is one that is more of a result of the school and home life as well, but the school plays more of a factor in this. Prior learning is a student's knowledge coming into your class. An example of school influence prior learning is if you are teaching fifth grade and a child is really struggling with math because they did not learn the basics of fourth grade, their prior learning was not a solid base for the learning that you are trying to teach in fifth grade. Another example of prior learning is if at home a child has learned that swear words are acceptable and okay, then they will come to school and that will be a part of their prior learning, and it will affect the way they interact with others. This is important because as a teacher, you need to recognize prior learning, use their good prior learning to your advantage, and you also may need to work to correct incorrect or incomplete prior learning from their past. Learning differences. These are very important because these are perhaps one of the biggest differences. There are students who have exceptionalities. These are students who will do very well in school. They will do better than most students, better than all students actually, and they will excel in certain areas, if not all areas. These students may also sometimes have some sort of social disorder, but that is not always the case. With these students, you need to make sure that you are challenging them while making them still feel like they are a part of the class. You may also need to send them for a portion of the day to go work with a more advanced teacher for more advanced material or things like that, but accommodations need to be made. And for learning differences and English language learners, ELLs, these two are probably the most influential factors on the students' involvement in the classroom, because these three areas might require students to have to take additional classes outside of your class. They may not attend your class for the full portion of the day, or they may need someone in the classroom with them. Now, with students with disabilities, these can be very broad, that term. So there are physical disabilities such as being blind or deaf or having a physical handicap, and then there are mental disabilities and learning disabilities. Mental disabilities include autism or another disorder that may have physical disabilities as a consequence. Learning disabilities include ADHD and ADD, attention deficit disorder. These will be less obvious because autism is very easy to notice, as we all have had experience with. But if a child has attention deficit disorder, they may seem as though they are doing well until tested. These children require special attention. They have the same right to education that everyone else does. It is up to the teachers and the parents and the professionals of the school to determine whether or not these children should be included in a normal classroom setting and for how often, and all the other additional help they need. As a teacher, you need to spend special efforts on these types of children because they may already feel excluded and separate from their other classmates. Once again, everyone with differences, no matter who you are or what is affecting you, has the same right to an education. Make sure that no student is deprived of learning because of their differences. The last one is personalities. This one, students are going to be different. That is a fact. So you need to understand that with some students, you may be able to joke around with or tease or maybe be harder on, but other students you will need to have different approaches, and you may need to be more sensitive, and you may need to prod them a little more to do their work, or you may find that they need validation more for what they do. These are student differences.